Welcome to this next webinar in the IPA HR Leadership Knowledge series. Um, in this webinar, as you know, we take up current issues that impact the pharma industry as such. Today, you're all aware that the government of India has been making amendments to the labor laws, and they have detailed about 4 labor codes in terms of wages, in terms of social security, industrial relations. And today we have with us the experts, the Aon consulting team, who will brief us on not just the labor codes, but also on the impact of these codes on compensation and benefit cost. I understand in the session, they will be covering key areas, some of the key provisions of labor codes. What are the impacts of these uh, key provisions? For example, what is the impact of the new definition of wages, and what can the employers do? So some of the action points also for employers. Um, Without taking much time on this, Rishikesh, if you are there, maybe I'll request you to give your opening remarks, and then we can go to the experts for their presentation and talk. Rishikesh.
Thank you, Archana. Good evening to all. Thank you, IPA, for organizing this webinar. This is a great opportunity for us to come on this common platform. And thank you, Aon team, for sparing your valuable time in enlightening the HR fraternity of IPA group companies, so that we all understand what is the implication of these labor codes amendments, and how financially as well as the other angle of overall our wage bill of the organizations, how it is going to be impacted, and for the compliance purpose, what all is required to be done from our side as an employer. So this was the purpose of organizing this webinar. And on our request, Aon team agreed to have this workshop. Thank you, Aon team, for this. And thank you, IPA, for organizing this team. So I'm looking forward to this session, and I'm sure, I think that it's going to be a great learning for all of us. I know, I think states, most of the states have not done the amendment in terms of the rules, but I think it is in progress. So I think very soon, maybe in the month of April or May, the amendment should come in terms of the state rules. Then the execution starts. But I think before that, it is important for all of us to know what is the implications. So over to Aon team now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening to all the members of IPA, and thank you for inviting Aon to this session. As way of introduction, my full name is Vishal Grover, and I lead the retirement and the benefits practice at Aon India. And I have alongside me my colleague Ganesh, and he leads a wider HR and rewards consulting, particularly for the pharma sector in India. Aon, of course, for those who may not be aware, is one of the world's largest professional services firms in the area of risk, retirement, health solutions, and overall HR consulting. And earlier we were, of course, called Hewitt in India, and now we've all rebranded ourselves as Aon. So I'll go ahead with the presentation, and very rightly shared by the panel members that this has been an important topic. And you would all recollect that back in September is when the labor codes were passed in the parliament, and subsequently very quickly ratified by the president. And since then, after the ratification, the first couple of months, we did see a lot of detailed rules being shared by the government around these codes, right up to December and January. And since only in the last 2 to 3 months that things have slowed down a little bit, primarily as rightly pointed out by Rishikesh, that because labor is a concurrent subject, both union as well as states have to frame the laws. And if you read the codes, most of the provisions closed with the few words saying that as this will be the provision as notified by the appropriate authority. That's why it's important that both the center and the states are aligned, on the various provisions of the codes. And from an employer's perspective, there should not be any confusion in the sense that for a particular benefit or a particular compensation item, there should not be conflicting provisions within the central rules as well as state rules. That's the overall objective of the codes. So allow me to share my screen. Yeah. So really, we have all seen a lot of content, thought leadership, uh, media releases on the same topic. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on the background. I just want to budget our critical time today on the key areas within compensation and benefits which have the potential to impact employers' cost, as well as have an impact on the employee salaries. So as Rishikesh pointed out that yes, there are 4 codes being proposed, and there are 29 central labor laws which are being consumed within these codes, and that's on your screen. Objectives and the vision is pretty straightforward. The government definitely wants to cut down on the quantum of compliances which are related with the existing laws at the moment, and some of them obviously date back to even pre-independence era. So really, the objective is to ensure that India is definitely comes across as a investment friendly destination. And of course, if together we are able to implement them successfully, we should see a sharp improvement in our ease of ease of doing business rankings, where I think currently India is around in the 60s, and if we are able to implement them successfully, we should definitely see a sharp improvement, maybe in the top 30 or 40, if we are able to implement these codes. Now, there are a lot of areas of focus and themes within the code, uh, but it is not possible to actually cover all of that within 1 hour. So we were just want to focus on some of the key elements around compensation and benefits, and then of course, you know, uh, given the opportunity, we can again reconnect at a future date on some of the other areas. But today's session is focused on compensation and benefits. And within that, of course, the most important piece is the new definition of wages, where uh, an honest attempt made by the government to actually consolidate all the different definitions of wages existing in various rules and social security laws into one common definition. And of course, when such a big change is happening, of course, there will be certain fallouts for both employers and employees. So I will come to that in a moment on the definition of wages and how it is expected to change the overall comp and ben strategy for companies. I would probably want to spend 5 minutes on some of the other big provisions within comp and ben, and then come back to the definition of wages. Coming to Provident Fund, most of you would have read that they are now also uh, applying a 10% rate. So there appears to be some sort of flexibility at 10% or 12%. But again, we don't foresee a very significant financial impact or gains to the employers because, as you would all agree, India follows a cost to company or a CTC model where everything is bundled as part of the offer letter to the employee. So just like it happened in last summer when the government reduced the rate to 10%, but subsequently issued a clarification that under a CTC model, if you are reducing the rate, the balance 2% has to be added to the employee's salary. And we foresee something like this also happening once the 10% rate is notified. The balance 2% most likely will have to be added to the employee's salary. Funding of gratuity, again, an important provision which existed in the Legacy Payment of Gratuity Act, although for in almost all the states that was never notified. So now they are actually bringing back that provision, and it appears that the government would want companies to start funding their gratuity. I'm sure that they will not mandate 100% funding from year one. Maybe there could be a sort of a phased plan for funding for for companies. And if I look at Aon's own databases, broadly 50 to 60% companies, medium plus large companies, have funded the gratuity already through trusts. And the typical average funding ratio is around 70%. But yes, if you are an organization which does not fund the gratuity, most likely this is something which will impact your cash flows, because you will have to contribute to these gratuity trusts. Alternatively, they are saying that you can take insurance against that liability. Now we have to just wait and watch as to whether insurance can be taken outside the ambit of a trust or not. Because as of now, funding can only happen through trust and not without trust. So if insurance is allowed outside the ambit of trust, then of course insurance companies will have to develop certain products which allow protection of gratuity liability to the employer or to the employees in the event of, say, bankruptcy. So again, important development to watch out for. Leave encashment, pretty much the same provisions. And in India, again, these are some of the areas where you will start seeing certain differences between center and state rules. So for the states or the commercial establishments, the Shops Act applies, and these Shops Act have rules which differ from state to state. For example, Maharashtra has 45 days accumulation allowed for unutilized or unavailed leaves. Similarly, I think Delhi, Karnataka, they are all at 45. Some states like Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, I think they have 60 days. Here, what the government is saying through the codes is that the accumulation limit is 30, but the important thing is anything above 30 will also need to be in cash. So that appears to be an impact or a big difference as compared to the current provision, where typically employers used to lapse the leave once employees hit the maximum limit. Now, the way it is written, it appears that as an employer, you will not be allowed to lapse any leave. So again, HR team leaders have to play an important role to ensure that employees do take leave regularly. It is important for their own wellness. Plus, of course, it will help contain companies uh, increasing liabilities on the leave encashment front, which are sitting in the balance sheet. Maternity and creche is pretty much similar provisions reinforced, which were in place since 2017 through the Maternity Amendment Act. So again, creches will have to be set up. Of course, while most of the services sector is still working from home, so most of these arrangements may not be working now. But of course, in the longer term, it is employers' responsibility to ensure they finance the creches on behalf of their employees. Overtime is again something which is bothering the industry, because the way it is written, they are using the term employee against the overtime provisions. So really one needs to watch out for the thresholds below which overtime has to be paid. And the typical thresholds within the codes are 15,000 under the code on wages and 18,000 in the other codes. So it appears that anybody earning wage below these limits, irrespective of whether white collar or blue collar, will be given overtime. Of course, there are certain exemptions in the sense that supervisory cadre or management cadre are exempted. Uh, but yes, another area to watch out for if it really adds to additional compensation and benefits costs for employers. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this slide. Essentially, the positives on the compliance side is the lower number of filings, lower number of returns, registers, complete move to electronic documentation. All these are positives, and we just need to wait and watch to see if they are making real changes on the ground. The inspectors will also act as facilitators to help companies understand the new rules and help them comply. But of course, if there is repeated non-compliance, then the penalties have also increased multifold. Of course, you would have read in the codes and across the media, big focus by the government on various categories of employees beyond the organized workforce. So they are talking about gig workers, platform workers, unorganized workers. Unorganized workers make up 80 to 90% of our total workforce, and that number could be 30, 40 crores. So again, very important for government to establish strong social security plans now. And I'm sure if you look at some of the demographic projections, while India definitely is a young country today, in the longer term, maybe in the mid 2030s, India will also start aging. And by 2050, more than 20% of our population will be senior citizens, which in absolute numbers would be around 30 to 40 crores. So again, very important for government and the state and employers and employees all together contribute and participate in the social security systems to ensure uh, uh, there are sufficient retirement funds available at the time of retirement for all categories of employees. Now, coming to the important topic, which of course is bothering the industry, is the new definition of wage, which, if you look closely, has is now covering a very large ambit. Earlier, organizations used to think in terms of inclusions or exclusions. Now, the definition starts by saying that all remuneration is wages. So, I think if organizations are able to accept that, then it will be easier to move towards compliance or easier for them to take certain decisions. Now, once you establish that your entire salary is wages, you then look at some of the exclusions which or the waivers which the government has allowed. And on your screen, you can see the exclusions list, where some of the common items within that exclusions list are provident fund or house rent allowance or statutory bonus. These are common items observed across all compensation structures in India. And besides all these items, everything else is wages. So really, and then of course, if I have to complete that point, if by any chance your exclusions are exceeding 50%, that is also not allowed. If a scenario happens such that the exclusions exceed 50%, then the excess above 50% has to be clawed back into the definition of wages, and which hints to the direction that in future your wages as a percentage of gross salary has to be at least 50%. And again, of course, we are hearing various interpretations, but the way the definition is written, it doesn't appear that your liability is capped at 50% of remuneration. It starts at 50% of remuneration. And then there is an additional, I would say, complication, which suggests that anything in kind, remuneration in kind, wages in kind, is also wages. While the list is not out yet on what are the typical items included, at this stage, it's very important for an organization to take a complete inventory of all sorts of allowances, benefits, perquisites, reimbursements, any sort of payment made to the employee, and see which typically qualify under wages in kind. So even if you take examples such as car leasing, company-owned cars, meals vouchers, gifts, insurance premiums for that matter as well. Let's take an inventory of all of these items within your structure and then see what are the items at risk, which obviously could be classified as wages. The reason why wages is important is if you look at the codes, all statutory benefits are now using the term wages. Of course, for Provident Fund, for ESI, there will be thresholds. There are current thresholds. For example, PF, the threshold is 15,000. ESI, it is 21,000. But yes, we have to move away from a concept of basic and now talk in terms of wages going ahead. So let's look at an example. If I look at scenario 2, where the existing basic pay is 25 and excluded allowances make up 75. In a future state, this will not be allowed, and the new wages will be uh, uh, tagged as 50, which is 50%. That's the threshold. Of course, if your basic is 60 and excluded allowances are 40, then your wages will be 60 and your liability really does not reduce from 60 to 50. So it's important to note that difference. And again, I just wanted to bring up, the 2019 Supreme Court judgment, where even the Supreme Court laid down the tests of defining wages. The universality, items which are necessarily paid, ordinarily paid. All these are wages, which means that typically in India, the balancing items within com structure. So you have basic, you have HRA, you have PF. Typically, the balancing items are called special, supplementary, flexible, personal, all these items also will qualify as wages, and that's what is in a way having an impact on companies, because historically companies use basic, and now if they have to use wages, which includes all these components, then liabilities on various benefits is expected to go up significantly. And even our finance minister has repeatedly said that in the last budget, although not in this budget, the last budget, you would remember that they introduced a new tax slab where if you give up all your tax efficient benefits, then you can have a lower tax slab. And we see more and more actions being taken on that front. On a longer term basis, it appears that the government also wants a pretty cleaner structure, compensation structure, which allows easier calculation of taxes, and all this process of giving proofs to the employers in the last quarter to get certain tax saving, all that eventually on a long term basis should go away. So again, these are important hints for employers to understand that maybe we are heading towards simpler compensation structures in the longer term. And once you have established your definition of wages, then of course anything linked to that undergoes a change. So anything, for example, gratuity, provident fund, leave encashment, employee state insurance, payment of bonus act, anything which is linked to wages will undergo a change. And really, if you look at compensation structures in India, a lot of our clients and a lot of companies generally in India offer flexible benefits or flexible compensation structures where, as an employee, you get to choose the different tax efficient allowances or benefits which you want within your structure. And the balance goes into, and if you don't opt for it, obviously these are tagged as special allowance. So under the future state, under the proposed uh, reforms, clearly, organizations will have to review and maybe go back to the drawing board to see whether they need to really change the compensation structure or not at this stage. The compensation structures in India have not undergone a review for several years, maybe decades. So now is possibly a good time for companies to see, depending on the new definition of wages, what is the comp structure they want to offer their existing and new employees in the future. And really, this is just one illustration. You can obviously choose to design a new compensation structure in a different form, which is compliant. When we took an extract of our salary increase survey, so Aon's SIS survey covers, the recent one which was released, about 1,200 companies, and items such as PF, leave encashment, all at basic, and basic to gross ratio for almost 88% of the organizations was in the range of 25 to 50%. And that's why you see all these, the new introduction of a new definition of wages will change all of that, because the basic, which is 25 to 50, now has to move to at least 50. And of course, this is not basic, this is wages. And that's where the need arises for companies to review their compensation structure to meet the compliance needs, to meet the employee needs, and to meet their own objectives of optimizing their spend on compensation and benefits. Coming to Provident Fund, now going back to the cost to company model or the CTC model, really, whoever we spoke to within the industry, practitioners, it appeared to us that companies will obviously not top up higher PF on top of existing salary. They will most likely restructure. So if a company decides to restructure their compensation and increase the basic to be more in line with the new definition of wages, uh, uh, Provident Fund, because it is stacked to basic, most likely will also go up. And companies are saying that most likely they will restructure in a way that if the PF goes up, the special, all the other allowances go down, since that there is no incremental cost to the company. And in this example, where the basic currently is 25% of the gross, if it moves to at least 50, in a scenario where the wages or the basic is at least 50, the potential reduction in cash in hand is around 6%, where an organization pays PF on the full basic salary. So really, it's important for organizations at some point of time to explain these changes to the employees as well. That if because of all these changes, there is a certain cash in hand reduction. This is not a way to penalize companies. This is just a way. This is just in response to government mandates. So your communication strategy will also have to be important within all these changes. Coming to gratuity and leave encashment, I think these are some of the bigger areas where employers are concerned, and I'm aware that some form of discussion has also happened between industry bodies and the government. So, because these are schemes which pay off the benefits on last drawn salary, if the pensionable or if the uh, salary anchor moves from basic to wages, there will be a proportionate increase in the liabilities sitting in the balance sheet. So if you today take an extract of the Sensex companies only and take an extract of their gratuity and leave liabilities, they are running into 15, 20, 25,000 crores. And you can imagine that if basic changes to wages, which could be 30, 40, 50% higher, these liabilities will also go up by 30, 50%, which again, for some companies, it has the potential to wipe out the quarterly, half-yearly profits as well. So that's where I think because of this new definition of wages, the critical fallout is that some of these last drawn salary schemes will undergo a sharp increase in liabilities unless the government comes out with certain waivers. Waivers could be amortization of the charge, or allowing it to go through reserves, or maybe making it only on prospective service and not on past service. So again, these are some of the areas where government could lessen the impact on employees. Again, and so again, going back to the point of wages, that once the wages changes, anything linked to that also undergoes a change. And say, taking an example, if you decide to increase your basic in response to the new definition of wages, HRA will also have to undergo a change. Sometimes insurance benefits are linked to your basic pay. This will undergo a change. Superannuation, NPS, National Pension Scheme historically linked to basic, these will also go up. And again, anything which is statutory benefit, ESI, all these will have to undergo a review. For example, under ESI, currently the way the wages is written, it includes HRA, and now under the new definition, HRA is excluded. So it could mean that some group of employees come back within the fold of ESI as well, and some may actually move out too. So again, organizations will have to just review all these impacts on their comp and ben, and then take design decisions accordingly. Budgeting and cost control, and this is not Aon's recommendation. This is just what we have been hearing from the market. So really, because of these huge hits companies are facing, especially on the retirement side, companies are inquiring if we should make some of the gratuity and the leave schemes less generous. For example, within the leave plans, should we reduce the limits to 30, 45 days? For gratuity, should we institute the cap of 20 lakh? For PF, should we actually bring down the contribution from uncapped basic to 15,000, such that it releases more cash in hand? Compensation structure opportunities to optimize cost. That's another inquiry we've been hearing. Overtime, of course. Really, how do we ensure there's not a large? Of course, it's important for companies now to monitor the time recording and have the adequate infrastructure in place to to track the time recording by employees, because all this is now absolutely mandatory. During the course of the presentation, of course, I have talked about the outstanding issues, and really it will be of great help for all the companies, for all the practitioners, if just like the government released very neat FAQs in the past around PF changes, it will be great if they come out and resolve most of these queries. So wages in kind, again a big query, which are the items which qualify within wages in kind, which again will need to be added to wages. So car leasing, company leased accommodation, meal vouchers, even long-term incentive plans, ESOPs, all that could potentially be tagged as wages in kind, which means that if they are wages, items such as variable pay or ESOPs could make the retirement contributions or the gratuity liabilities extremely volatile. So I think this is very important for government to to come out and clarify what are the things they are intending to include within the wages in kind basket. Exclusions from wages, again, while we saw the list at the beginning, but it is not exhaustive. So important for government to clarify or make the list, expand the list to cover all different types of allowances which are in the exclusions list. It will again help companies, review their own compensation structure. Gratuity funding, again, it's a little more clarity as to when this is actually being effective. Will it be like the old Payment of Gratuity Act where this is just on paper and not a mandatory, or will they actually start asking companies to contribute towards, the gratuity trust, at least at certain minimum funding levels? Over time, again, needs to be absolutely clear who is it for and what are the thresholds. Maternity, whether it has to be on full salary or on wages, because if wages is less than your full salary, then, and if maternity is also maternity wages is also needs to follow the new definition of wages, then of course that's a big negative, because female colleagues will not be able to get their full salary. So again, needs to be clarified completely by the government if maternity has to be on the full salary. Leave encashment, again, most likely it will be on the new definition of wages, because if you look at the Shops Act of most states, they use the term wages from the Payment of Wages Act, and Payment of Wages Act is also getting consumed within the codes. So if not directly, indirectly, even the leave encashment has to be done on wages. But of course, the alignment between the central and the state rules needs to happen. Um, ESI and Payment of Bonus Act again will undergo a change. I understand the thresholds are under review. And finally, the bigger alignment with the income tax laws as well. For example, if you read the income tax laws around salaries and perquisites, most of the limits, tax-free limits, are using the term basic. So that basic also has to change to wages, because you don't want a situation that because of adopting wages, employees are getting large gratuity increases. But if the cap remains at 20 lakh, which is also calculated on basic, then of course it will be unfortunate and employees will have to pay more tax. Similarly, whether house rent allowance will be on basic or on wages, PF can be on basic or wages. All these alignment with the income tax rules is also needed, so that it is easier for tax practitioners to do those required calculations at the end of the year. At this stage, when we were talking to our clients way back in December, January, we definitely uh, uh, assumed and strongly felt that the government will go live from 1st of April, but we are on 30th of March now. Does not appear we will go live on 1st of April. And again, COVID, of course, is making things difficult. The assembly elections are going on. A lot of other things on the plate of the government, as I understand. Uh, so really, we could possibly look at maybe April, May, June as potential effective dates. Again, important for states to also come up with their draft rules for all the four codes, which are similar to those issued by the center, such that there is no confusion. And one thing to watch out for is, even if these get implemented in May or June, whether government will actually retrospect it from 1st April. So again, important for you to continuously engage with your compliance payroll vendors to ensure they are on top of what are the changes in documentation and filings, the new formats, all that has to be create. All the templates have to be created now. It's important you keep engaging with your payroll and compliance vendors as well. And of course, important for all companies to do those financial assessments on various scenarios to see what sort of impacts they are getting on the new definition of wages, and whether it makes sense for companies to really restructure their entire compensation to ensure it meets the required objectives. Objectives being continued flexibility to employees, optimizing the spend, compliance, tax efficiency. So these are the broad objectives of our overall compensation structure review, and that is something which we would recommend at this stage for all participants. From Aeon's perspective, our focus, of course, continues to be comp and ben, and where we have started helping companies is around the core comp and ben areas, which is essentially looking at their structure, components of structure, potentially falling within or outside wages, what impact it has on your retirement liabilities, actuarial valuations, redesign options, what are the pros and cons of each option, and then of course any sort of implementation or communication support which companies need from an employee communication perspective. I will stop there, Roshan, and hand it back to you